Number 10. The Nazi Ghost Train. In April 1945, in the idyllic and hilly town of Walbrzych, Poland, a train passed through. Mysteriously, though, the train never made it to the other end of the tracks. Many believe this is the fabled Nazi gold train carrying priceless treasures taken from Jewish families before they were tragically taken to various concentration camps across Europe. For decades, rumors circulated about the ghostly locomotive, which is said to hold billions of dollars worth of precious items, but no one had any clue as to its whereabouts. The belief is that the train went into a series of hidden underground tunnels created by the Nazis in order to transport important individuals and valuables should the need arise. That was until 2015, when two men approached the mayor of the town claiming that they knew the whereabouts of the missing Nazi ghost train. They said that the 500-foot-long armored train was somewhere nestled in the hills and mountains not far from the town. Authorities from the Polish government then spent months attempting to dig up the area where the treasure hunters claimed that the train was hiding. As interest grew, local businesses began to sell ghost train memorabilia to tourists that flocked to the region in preparation to see a slice of lost World War II history. However, the train was never found, and Polish officials say there's no evidence of the ghost train ever being there. Meanwhile, others still protest that there's undeniable proof of its existence. Number 9. Rommel's Gold. Erwin Rommel was an infamous Nazi general whose prowess in the North African campaign of the Second World War earned him the title of the Desert Fox. However, it's not just his skills on the battlefield that people continue to talk about him to this day. It's his lost gold. During his time in Tunisia, Rommel and his forces managed to acquire over $24 million of gold and other valuable items from the Jewish population. In 1942, Rommel's stolen spoils were transported by ship to be sent to Berlin. However, the ship never made it, and many believe it may have sunk off the coast of Corsica. Since then, people have been obsessed with finding the gold, with countless books and YouTube channels on the subject. One famous name who was keen on finding the lost treasure was Ian Fleming, the author of the James Bond novels. He even asked a national British newspaper, the Sunday Times, to fund an expedition so that he could try and find it. But they refused, thinking the operation was too costly despite Fleming's expertise in the war. This didn't stop Fleming's interest in the story, though, as even he mentioned Rommel's gold in one of his James Bond novels on Her Majesty's Secret Service. Bond discussed the grisly fate of two adventurers who had been unlucky in their search for the Nazi treasure. Number 8. Peking Man Fossils. The oldest items to be lost during World War II are the Peking Man fossils. At over 500,000 years old, the skeletal remains were discovered in a cave near Beijing in China. When they were found, they were the oldest record of human existence at the time. Studies conducted on the fossils and at the site discovered that not only did our early ancestors use tools, but they also were the first to use fire. Sadly, research was cut short in 1941 when the Chinese government sought to ship the bones to the USA for safekeeping due to the conflict with Japan. But the fossils never made it to their destination. Rumors suggest that the train they were placed on to arrive at the port was halted by Japanese forces. Believing them to be useless, they would have been discarded, only to be picked up by the local people and ground up into traditional medicine under the belief that they were dragon bones. Others believe that, similar to the fate of a famous English king, the bones lay under a Chinese parking lot. Scientists and paleontologists still mourn the loss of the Peking Man fossils to this day. The bones would have given researchers insights into early human life, especially with newer technologies such as forensics and CT scans. Although casts were made of the bones before their disappearance, sadly they don't provide as many results as the originals would have. There is a silver lining to the tale, though. A museum in Sweden is thought to have a single tooth from the Peking Man, which had been sent to the Museum of Uppsala. Although it's small, it can hopefully allow us to unlock some clues about our distant past. Number 7. Raphael's Portrait of a Young Man. Raphael's portrait of a young man is truly bizarre. With a lopsided black hat and brown fur cloak draped over their shoulder, it almost looks like the painting is watching your every move out of the corner of its eye. In the background is a clear blue sky and the gray buildings of a town in the distance. At least, that's what we think the colors are. In truth, nobody actually knows. Raphael's Portrait of a Young Man is one of the most famous paintings stolen during World War II. The only records we have of it now are black and white photographs. We believe the painting was completed by the famous artist in 1513 and 1514. It was displayed in the Princess Kartioski Museum in Poland. When the Nazis invaded, it was hidden alongside 3 other famous artworks: Da Vinci's Lady with an Ermine, Rembrandt's Landscape of the Good Samaritan, and the Portrait of a Young Man. Unfortunately, it did not take long for the Nazis to sniff out the masterpieces. They found them just 2 short weeks after they were hidden away. They were displayed in the residence of Hans Frank in Krakow, who was the governor of the general government. In 1945, the Allies were able to arrest Frank and found the Rembrandt and the Da Vinci painting in his villa, but the Raphael portrait was nowhere to be found. Was it smuggled out ahead of time? Was it damaged in the war beyond repair? Let us know what you think in the comments below and hit that subscribe button while you're at it. Number 6. SS Minden. In 1939, just after World War II broke out, the German ship SS Minden set sail from Brazil. Its official cargo was listed as resin being transported for industrial use. However, it is heavily believed that the vessel was instead carrying gold and other treasures sent from South American banks to Nazi Germany. The ship made its way up through the Atlantic before it was intercepted by the British Navy around 120 miles from the Icelandic shoreline. Fearing their cargo would be seized, the vessel was deliberately sunk to prevent it from falling into enemy hands. It's still unconfirmed what was actually on board the SS Minden, as its whereabouts remain unfound to this day. Recently, treasure hunters attempted to find the vessel, although the search was called off in June 2018 when their permit for ocean floor exploration expired. Number 5. Yamashita's Gold. Japanese General Tomoyuki Yamashita was known as the Tiger of Malaya. He earned this name during World War II when he successfully commanded his army of 30,000 men to capture the British-held territories of Malaya and Singapore. His occupation of the territory was brutal, leading to the deaths of around 100,000 Chinese men and others in what was dubbed as the Sukching massacres. However, one of the other things this feared general is known for is the suspected secret that he took with him to his grave when he was hanged on February 23, 1945. That secret is the location of a large hoard of gold hidden deep in the Philippines. It's said that the gold was stored in one of many tunnels across Asia. Called the Golden Lily Tunnels, they were ordered to be built by Japanese Prince Tsunoyoshi Takeda when he felt that they were losing the war. He did it so that the valuables the Japanese army had obtained from across Southeast Asia couldn't be stolen. The tunnel holding Yamashita's gold is said to be underneath the ground on the Philippine island of Luzon, although this is not confirmed. Rumor has it that the slaves and soldiers tasked to build the tunnels were sealed inside them upon completion, meaning that as they died of starvation and suffocation, the secret was safe and stayed only with Yamashita and the prince. Number 4. Awa Maru. The Awa Maru was a Japanese cruise liner that was built in 1941. However, she never managed to be used for leisure, as thanks to the war she was acquired by the Japanese Navy. As the tides of the war began to turn, she became a Red Cross ship in 1945, transporting resources and aid to Allied prisoners of war in Japan. As such, she was allowed safe passage on the seas. After delivering her cargo, she then headed on to Singapore, where she took on stranded diplomats, military personnel, and civilians to give them safe passage back across the waves. This should have been a routine operation, but sources state that they witnessed sacks of rice being loaded one afternoon, but that very evening the dock was cleared and the soldiers removed the bags and replaced them with contraband, rumored to be worth billions of dollars. We won't be able to prove these sources right or wrong, though. On its way back, a U.S. submarine, the USS Queenfish, mistook her for a warship and torpedoed the Awa Maru. There were thousands of people on board, and only one survived. In the 1970s and 80s, Chinese salvage crews spent $100 million on locating the wreck. They were successful and were able to return bodies and artifacts to Japan, but no treasure was ever found. Curiously, the Japanese demanded $52.5 million in compensation, even though the official contents manifest for the Awa Maru only had a value of $7.5 million. Number 3. Royal Casket. The Royal Casket was a memorial wooden chest created and curated by the Polish princess, Izabela Dorota Czartoryska. It held valuable items from the Polish royal family. According to history, the Royal Casket contains 75 artifacts of the Polish aristocracy. Notable pieces include King Sigismund the Old's pectoral cross, Queen Marie Casimir's gold watch, Queen Marie Lezysenska's silver rosary, and King Poniatowski's gold snuff box. It was located within the Czartoryska Museum alongside other treasures. In 1830, during the Russian-Polish uprising, it was hidden within the wall of an outbuilding of Krakow Palace. However, this is not where it went missing. When the Nazis occupied Poland in 1939, it's said that a German employee revealed the location of the royal casket. Upon digging it up, the Germans divided the treasure between themselves, and if the rumor is to be believed, some were even melted down and repurposed. Although some of the collections of the Czartoryska Museum have been recovered, no one has ever been able to locate the royal casket or its contents. Number 2. Honjo Masamune. Masamune was a fabled swordsmith in Japan during the 13th century. His swords were heralded far and wide and remain some of the best forged weapons to this day. The HONJO MASAMUNE is one of the most famous of his creations, ending up in the possession of the Tokugawa shogunate and serving as a symbol of their power. It was declared an official Japanese treasure by the Japanese government. However, upon Japan's defeat, the US demanded that every person should hand over all weapons, including their swords. Reluctantly, but to set an example to his people, Tokugawa Ieyasu handed over his family's swords, among them the legendary HONJO MASAMUNE. From there, the weapons were loaded onto a ship to travel across the Pacific and back to the States. However, this is the last we ever heard about the priceless HONJO MASAMUNE. Number 1. The Amber Room. Originally a masterpiece constructed in 1701 by German sculptor Andreas Schlüter, the Amber Room was revolutionary for its time. No one before had attempted to make interior decorations out of something that had typically been reserved for jewelry and accessories. Schlüter created many engraved amber panels with the help of Danish craftsman Gottfried Wolfram. They developed new ways to work with the material, creating intricate designs laced with gold, silver, and precious jewels. The work continued through the years, being a true labor of love and involving many other craftsmen who continued what the pair had started. In 1707, the piece was installed in Berlin City Palace, where it remained until 1716 when Tsar Peter the Great from Russia fell in love with the piece. As a result, the then ruler of Germany, Frederick William I, presented the room to Peter as a gift. The room was moved to St. Petersburg, Tsar Peter's newly created city, and was heralded as the 8th wonder of the world. Even in spite of its relocation, work continued on the room until 1770, when the amber masterpiece was finally completed, and it was massive. Over 6 tons of amber were used over a space of 590 square feet, and experts reckon that its value would have been between $145 to $290 million. The Amber Room remained in its Russian home until 1941, when the Germans invaded the city, then called Leningrad, as part of Operation Barbarossa. Despite the Russians' attempts to move and safeguard the Amber Room, the German military was able to locate it, disassemble it into crates, and take it away, believing that as German artwork, it should be brought back with them. This wasn't when the piece was lost, though. The German public was able to enjoy the piece for 2 whole years when it was installed in Königsberg Castle. However, as the tides of the war began to shift, it was dismantled again in 1944 before bombing ravaged the city. The Amber Room was never seen again. Thanks for watching. Which one of these lost treasures fascinated you the most? Tell us in the comments below, and also don't forget to subscribe. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time for another amazing video right here on American Eye.